Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tammy Tuckey Show. It's nice to see all of you. So, I am very glad for today, especially because we have two wonderful guests who are joining the show. But before we have them join, I thought we'd play a little trailer from one of the films that we all have come to love and know from 1960, Pollyanna.
Think about what I've been trying to get you baptized for the past 3 years.
Darling, listen, honey, you've got to hurry.
Okay, you're going to be very happy with it, sir. Hurry, right this way, ladies. It's ripe, it's lovely. There you are, folks, the finest watermelon at a penny a slice. You cannot...
So, welcome this evening. We're all glad to have Nancy Livingston Olson and Hayley Mills. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Hi.
Hi. How are you, Hayley?
I'm fine. I'm a bit hot and sweaty here. London is going through a heat wave. And we all live in these houses that are designed for keeping in the warmth, not the heat. So if I start, sweating on my upper lip.
Where are you?
I'm in London.
Ah.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
It's still cold in Los Angeles, so you can come and visit me.
I know. It's like we've got California weather and you've got our weather. It's amazing. Yeah.
We've been getting storms here in Philadelphia, so it's been back and forth with hot weather.
The world is truly upside down at the moment.
It is. It absolutely is.
Truly.
Well, I mean, I'm having an air conditioning unit installed in my bedroom on Tuesday. So, that's unheard of in this country. We don't have air conditioning unit, but this is the new norm. We got to roll with the punches, I guess, Nancy.
Well, you know something? You are still a little difficult for me to hear you clearly, but we'll make it work.
Okay. I'll speak more clearly.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's partly my hearing. When you get to be my age, you lose a little bit of everything,
Yeah, but also we had a bit of a problem setting this up.
I know.
And I just hope and pray that suddenly my Wi-Fi doesn't go conk out, because I haven't been able to plug in my machine because I'm too far away from the socket.
And we're half the globe away.
Yes.
This is the joy of being able to hold these interviews and these reunions. So thank you guys for joining me today. It was so wonderful because you both had released your own books recently. Hayley, you have your Forever Young memoir, and Nancy, you have your Front Row Seat. And I got to read both, and just really wonderful to hear both of your perspectives, because Hayley, you were someone who started in the film industry and entertainment industry as a young kid, and Nancy, you're coming in in your early 20s to be a part of some wonderful, memorable experiences on the film and also on stage. So for both of you, when did you kind of make that decision? I think I really want to write down my memories of these experiences and my notes. Maybe I have some diaries that I have, and I had these memories I want to kind of go back and remember. Nancy, were you somebody who kind of jumped into that first during COVID? You were like, let's just go over my story.
In 1986, that's a long time ago, my first husband, I'm only married twice, he died, and my two daughters were in New York with him, and they called me, and of course they wanted me to give them, some support and love, which I've tried to do as hard as I could. And what I did was I sat down and wrote them a letter. And I said in the letter that I am now going to tell you the story of your parents' life, our life together. But before that, our growing up, our each starting a very special career, and having both of you and what that was like. And then I end it saying that I will continue. And I put the letter away for 4 years. And then I thought, my goodness, as I was going through some papers, I found the copy of the letter. And I started to think maybe I should start writing down my life. And then I'd do a whole section, and then I'd put it down again. Now, this is now, what are we, 2000 and what? And 1986. It's taken a long, long time. But then toward the end, the last couple of years before the book was published, I really worked on it and thought, I want to publish this. I want to do it for my children. Since then, I was remarried to a wonderful marriage and husband, had a beautiful son and 2 more grandchildren. And I wanted them to know about not only my life, but about the world and how it changed and what I saw happen. I mean, I remember the Second World War. I remember Pearl Harbor. I remember the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And these things were major. They were a major part of the 20th century. And then, of course, I married a major playwright or librettist, Alan Lerner and Lowe. And I sat and watched. I got married, moved to New York, and said to Paramount, I don't want to be a movie star anymore. And that's a whole different story, but it's true. Mm-hmm. And I went and became a mother and a wife. And I listened to some of the great theater musical pieces being written. The community, the process is amazing, and it takes a gift. And I absorbed that and loved it. Anyway, Alan Lerner ultimately married 8 times. I was number 3. And so, by the way, My Fair Lady was dedicated to me. I will never forget, and I've written very carefully about the creation of that, how it came about, why he wanted to do it, and how he constructed it and made it into an incredible work. And
I love that chapter. I love that chapter because you talk so much of just the creation and how excited they were to create this score. They knew something was special about it.
They knew, and I knew, and they'd wake me up in the middle of the night in Rockland County, and it was a blizzard one night, and they have the galoshes and the coat and the hat and the scarf, and they take me down the stairs at 3 a.m, and I'm walking down the driveway across the little road. We lived in Rockland County in the country outside of New York City. And there's the studio all lit up, warm, lovely. We go in. Alan is standing in front of the piano. Frederick Lowe goes to the piano. They describe to me what happened, and they do The Rain in Spain Stays Mainly in the Plain. The entire number. And then they play both parts, Eliza, Higgins, Pickering, and they go back on the little sofa, and I'm sitting there, and they look at me and say, "How do you like it?" And I said, "You have one problem." "What is it, Nance?" Fritz called me Nance. I said, "When this happens in the theater, the actors will not be able to continue. They will go crazy, and the actors will not know what to do. They're in the middle of a Shaw play, and they're stopped, literally." And they said, "No." And I said, "Yes."
Yes.
And guess what happened opening night? Rex Harris and Eliza, and what's her name, who played Eliza?
Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews, and the young man who was playing Pickering. They hold hands at the end of the number. They lie down on the sofa. The audience goes crazy. They stand up, they stamp their feet, and they can't go on. And Rex whispers, "What are we going to do?" And Julie says, "Hold hands, stand up, and take a bow." That's what they did, and it started all over again. So anyway, that's in the middle of the night.
And that's just one of those stories that you tell, like, that probably nobody knows of that, of what happened before that iconic moment on the stage. Right. So, and Hayley, and Hayley, your dad was an actor as well, too. So you got to, I'm assuming you got the chance to experience what it was like being on a movie set before even getting the chance to star in your own role. So leading up to that, how did you kind of discover, I want to do something similar to this as well, too? I want to be an actress.
Well, it kind of discovered me, really. But I hate to leave Nancy's story. I'm so fascinated by that story, Nancy. All right, I'll answer your story, Tammy. I mean, your question.
Hayley, you were one of the most charming. Were you 12 or 13 in Pollyanna?
13.
13. 13 is an awkward age.
Yes.
You were absolutely delightful.
Well,
and you somehow knew what you were doing, which fascinated me. Because at 13, I didn't know what I was doing, I promise you. And I loved your parents, too. I know everybody has a problem with their parents.
Yeah.
But I didn't with yours. And your mother and I became really good friends. And I just had been divorced, and I was in very emotionally not great shape. So what you and your family and that movie did for me was just lift me up.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, Nancy, I mean, that's so sweet of you, the things that you said about my parents and me, for that matter. So it kind of goes back to Tammy's question. You know, I was very fortunate, and I grew up in a family, in a theatrical family.
Yes.
My father had been an actor, and a successful actor, for
very.
Since he was, 20. So going to the studio and watching actors work and understanding the process and the technical side of it, I just absorbed. I knew about hitting marks. I knew about the language of the studios, and finding your light, and being disciplined. My father was very disciplined, and the first film I did happened quite by chance, because the director, J. Lee Thompson, came down to have lunch with us, where we were living in Sussex on a farm, to talk to my father about being in the film that he was preparing. And it was a film called Tiger Bay that he was going to make with this wonderful German film star called Horst Buchholz, his first English movie. And it was about a seaman who comes back and finds that his girlfriend has been two-timing him. He has a terrible fight with her and ends up accidentally shooting her. And this has been observed by what was then a boy. And then the story is the man and the boy running off and him trying to avoid and evade the police until he can escape on a ship and get away. And during that afternoon with Lee Thompson, he decided to make the boy a girl because he saw me messing around doing television commercials. So that's how it happened. So it was a complete accident. And my first day on Pollyanna was such a shock to my system, having done Tiger Bay, which was a small black and white movie for the Rank organization, to suddenly find myself in Hollywood with these enormous sets, all these fantastic stars of the American stage and screen, and the costumes, and we were filming in Carmel in intense heat, and I was so overwhelmed that morning that they didn't get a single shot in the can, and my father had to speak very severely to me during lunch, and he said, "You've got to pull your finger out because you're like a great big white cabbage." I knew exactly what he meant. He meant I was being boring, which is the absolute, paramount sin in my family, which of course was a big responsibility not to be boring. And so in the afternoon, I got better. But I adored making that film. And one of the reasons, and I'm not blowing smoke, Nancy, is I absolutely adored you. And I've said this in my book. You were so sweet to me. And I thought you were so beautiful. And you wore those clothes so well. And I believed in you. I believed in your character, who was called Nancy. And there's a picture of you there as Nancy, I believe. Isn't that right, Tammy?
That's right. Yep.
Yes.
Both of you on set.
Yeah. So, I was so lucky to be surrounded by wonderful professional actors who
it was a great cast. Yes.
Helped me. It was a wonderful cast. Yes, it really was. So what was the first thing you ever did, Nancy? How did you get into it? Where did it happen? I have to say, I'm terribly sorry. I have not read your book because I was hoping.
Well, let me tell you,
and I didn't get it.
That I couldn't wait to read your book. I brought it home after we met, and you had given me the book, and I put it on my night table with my other books, and it disappeared. And I looked everywhere. And it turns out that, my son and his wife are legally separated. And so he has temporarily moved back into my house. Right. So I have my granddaughter who is going to college in the fall and my grandson, and they spend 1 week with me and then go over to their mother's house and spend 1 week with her. So she picked up your book. She was fascinated. And she started reading it, but now it was time to go back to her mother's. So she took the book with her.
Right. And that was it. So
she hasn't brought it back.
Right.
And now I have pleaded, I have cajoled, I have threatened. She promises me that she will bring it back this coming week.
Right.
So don't hold your breath, but
no.
She's promised. And I
And
think
Haley's, your copy of Nancy's is on its way. I just assume because it's going overseas, I think it was delayed. So I'm sorry it
Yes.
didn't get there soon
Oh,
enough.
no,
But
it's
they're
really
both
good
brilliant.
because we're both on the same page, if you'll pardon the pun. Neither of us have read each other's books.
well,
which
we
is
both
great.
look forward to reading each other's books then.
Yes.
Because actually, I come from a family, my father was a doctor and my mother was a retired school teacher. They were extremely educated, both and sophisticated. But we lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Now, you're not that aware of America, but the Midwest is a part of the country that is very unique. It has a quality and a kind of sensibility of its own. Sensibility is a good word for it. It has a kind of honesty and straightforwardness. And when I was there, I went to a very terrific high school. It was a public high school, but it was in the suburbs, and it had a program it had a choir, it had a drama program, it had a speech, forensic, they called it. And I wrote a speech called The Teenage Bill of Rights. And I wish to heck I could read it because I'd be curious to know what it was. But I had 10 Bill of Rights. And I won the city, the county, the several counties, and the state. And this kind of success gave me some confidence.
Yeah.
And then I was in every musical and every play that they did. And this was my passion. I love the theater. I love speaking. Anyway, I didn't want to be president of the United States. Don't worry. Anyway, and then I went to the University of Wisconsin. And as a freshman, they said, you cannot join the Wisconsin or try out for the Wisconsin Players until you're a sophomore. I paid no attention. I tried out and I got the lead.
Oh.
And
Wow.
then I transferred to UCLA because my aunt and uncle were coming out, and my uncle was going to be dean at UCLA of the business school. And I was had a sorority, Kappa Kappa Gamma, and I lived in this house and spent the summer. And their theater arts program is phenomenal. It still is. And I said, I don't want to go back to Wisconsin. Please. I want to stay here. This is what's happening. And I was in every musical and by the way, it's very valuable to have an education because we did Shakespeare, Moliere, Tennessee Williams.
Wow.
You start learning about history, geography, what's been happening in the world, which people write about. Mm-hmm. So that your sense of being educated, I believe, is extremely important. Mm. And anyway, of course, LA at that time had all these studios, and Paramount they all had a talent division where they went out and signed you and you got, minimal pay per week. And then they'd put you in a little part here and a little part there and that kind of thing. Well, I was signed and I kept going to school, but I would visit the Paramount, and I was fascinated with watching the stars and their behavior. And I'd go to the commissary and watch people come in, and I loved sitting near the writer's table because they all laughed at each other all the time. Anyway, then they said, we're going to lend you to 20th Century Fox in a picture called Canadian Pacific. You will play the lead. Wow. I read the script, and it was with oh God, I forget his name, but he was as old as my father, okay?
Right.
And a star. And at that time. And I was playing half Indian Canadian girl.
Oh,
Now, do I look like an Indian?
no. You mean
That's what I
American
said.
Indian
I called and I
or
said,
Indian Indian?
how? Well, they said you're only half.
Okay, that's interesting.
Very,
Okay.
very.
I did the play. I mean, excuse me. I did the film in
Yes.
Canada. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. Banff and Lake Louise, and it was gorgeous. And I enjoyed it, and I learned about close-ups and full, the whole scene, and then the breaking down of it, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I began to realize that the camera was telling part of the story, a very necessary part.
Yeah.
That was, in other words, if you have an actor with one tear coming down their cheek and you come in and do a close-up, you don't have to have a lot of dialogue. Where in the theater, you got to get to the last row in the upper balcony.
Yes.
So you have to talk about what you feel.
Yes.
So that's why my first husband said, Alan Lerner, nobody goes to a bookstore to buy a screenplay. But you buy Shakespeare, you buy Tennessee Williams, that's literature.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. Anyway, I kind of was interested in both. I went back to school because this summer was over. I finished the film, went back to school, and now they called me and they said, Billy Wilder is doing a film called Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, yes.
And he wants you to play a part. I thought, my God, Billy Wilder? So
That's
I read
the
the
deal right there. Oh my goodness.
I read the script, and it was about a young, aspiring writer.
Mm.
And
Yes.
first of all, the script was amazing.
Yeah.
And by the way, what Billy did was, as being a gifted director, he wrote in the script. Half the page would be the dialogue, and the other half of the page would be a description of what you were looking at, what the camera was seeing.
Oh, right.
So that he really was a film director.
Yeah.
What I mean. And so anyway, what I realized was that he stopped me when I would come to visit the set or visit the studio, and I was walking to the commissary. He'd catch up with me several times and ask me questions. What was it like growing up in the Midwest? What is UCLA like? Your father was a doctor. What kind of a doctor? I mean, he went on and on. I thought, what does he care? And when I got the part, I realized that he wanted me. I even wore my own clothes.
All right.
Because that girl, you could believe, was an aspiring actor. I spoke well. I was educated. I came from an educated family. And you could believe that possibly.
Right.
And so it's so interesting that he never directed me and said, now, Nancy, in this scene, da, 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 da. He would just say, let's rehearse. And he was famous for printing the first take.
Wow.
Begged him to do it again the first time in the first scene. And he
Yes.
said, no, cut.
Yeah.
Print.
Right.
Well, the studios must have loved him because he saved them all that money.
Yeah, that's right. And he was right.
But anyway,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, you're
But
talking about if you're talking
Hayley,
about Billy as a director, so what were some of the differences that you've had with directors over the years? Do you think you prefer, the way that Billy did with the one take wonder, or do you like having multiple takes? What do you think would be more preferable for both of you?
I think that Billy Wilder was possibly one of the most gifted directors in the business. I wish somebody would answer my telephone. There's a lot of people here.
It's Billy. Scotland.
But it might be one of those things that says spam risk or something like that. And
Yeah.
Usually.
I don't pick it up. Nobody picks it up.
Right,
Anyway,
right.
Billy was absolutely the most gifted director I ever worked with.
Mm.
I cannot remember his name, but I did it's interesting. I did Sunset Boulevard. I did a picture with Bing Crosby called Mr. Music. I was much too young for Bing. I did another picture with Bill Holden, because we were that now a couple, called Union Station, which is kind of an interesting film. But the director had a nervous tick. And this is what he would do. And I thought, when he said cut, print, and he'd do this, I thought he didn't like it.
Yes,
He
yes.
was shaking his head.
Oh,
And so this bothered me, I have to tell you. Anyway, I did another horrible film with Bill Holden, and before any of them were released, including Sunset, I married Alan Erner and moved to New York, and I said to Paramount, I don't want to be a movie star.
Mm-hmm. So
Why?
what made you?
Why did you say that,
Because I
Nancy?
got there at 7 a.m, hair and makeup, 9 o'clock on the set, worked until 12 to 1 lunch, 1 to 6, and I went home. 6 days a week at that time.
Mm.
I was 21. I wanted to be with my college friends. It was not possible. I had to go home, take off my makeup, have a little supper, and get my sleep for the next day. I was a prisoner. I felt like a prisoner in this dark, huge soundstage.
Mhm.
And Billy Wilder and the next director and the director after him owned me.
Well, what made you want to come back? Because wasn't Pollyanna one of the first movies you came back to
Yes.
after?
Yes.
So what inspired you to come back? Was it Walt himself who gave you the call, or?
It was Walt calling me on the island of Mallorca, but then he turned it over to his people and just said, Nancy, we're doing a picture and we're spending a great deal of money for the first time on a picture that is not animation. And he said, we've got nothing but stars. And it was, Jane Wyman and Carl Malden and Agnes Moorehead, and it went on. And he said, we want you. I didn't ask what the part was. I said, I'm going to be in Los Angeles with my 2 children visiting my parents, who now lived in LA. And I said, for the month. So I said, it's perfect. I'll do it. I didn't know what it was about.
Funny.
But I thought, that sounds interesting.
What was the first day like on set for you? I know, Hayley, you said, it was a little bit, nerve-wracking, but do you remember these moments? I found some of these pictures. I'm not sure. Is the director right between you and Jane, Nancy? Is that the director or is that the screenwriter?
I don't know.
I couldn't tell.
I can't.
That is David Swift, the director, who wrote the screenplay.
I can't. Is that right?
Yeah.
The only thing I could remember about making this film is that, I'd just recently been divorced and I was with 2 little girls. I was living in New York City. I had a lot of people taking care of us. but I had no idea what was going to happen to me. And my personal life was what was important to me more than professional.
Mm.
But I thought this will just be a interesting, it'll give me something else to think about. And the first person I met was Hayley on the set, because we did, you were at the dining room table and I was serving you. And then you did something and I did. And when I saw the film, the audience went crazy and laughed. And I thought, oh, that's interesting.
It's such a character piece. I don't think we get that nowadays in film, because there's nothing that happens in the movie. It's basically, it's almost like Meet Me in St. Louis. It's about a family, and this one's about a town, right? And the town is changed because of this one little girl, Pollyanna. Right. And I want to play a little scene of the two of you, because I think it's just so cute. It must have been fun to shoot this on this particular day. So here's a quick little clip.
Now, how does that go again? Early one morning, just as the sun was rising. Early one morning, just as the sun was rising. I heard a maiden singing in the valley below. Why not? Early one morning, just as the sun was rising. I heard a maiden singing.
Just really, those special moments. What do you think of when you see clips like that from the film?
Well, it was fun. I mean, it wasn't heavy duty, right?
No, it was fun. It was fun, and I do remember that scene because David Swift was he was the writer. He did write the screenplay, and he wrote the next one that I did for Disney, which was The Parent Trap, and I think he was. Certainly, I think those were the best films that I made for Disney. But what was wonderful about David was that he listened to actors, and if they came up with something, and he thought it was good, he liked it. And I don't know if you remember, Nancy, but it was actually my suggestion to sing Early One Morning.
Great. I don't remember, but it worked beautifully.
And I don't know why I suggested it, and he said yes. And it was a wonderful feeling of, oh, I've got something to offer. I've made a contribution.
Yes.
And because some directors have scant regard for actors. Some directors think actors are like cattle, but not David. Who was I suppose, your favorite director, Nancy?
I think Billy Wilder, without a question.
Yeah.
I mean, he was night and day with everybody else.
Yes.
He was a very complicated human being and had a very tragic background. His mother and his sister were murdered in Auschwitz.
Oh my God.
He grew up in Germany. So he had a sense of the world that most people do not have.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, for me, Pollyanna was a lift. It was fun. I loved your parents. Your mother and I became very good friends. And she was lovely and understood, by the way, what I was going through.
Right.
And she was very compassionate about that and very understanding and knowing.
Right. She was.
And I appreciated that so much. And I loved working with you. You were spontaneous and fun.
It was a wonderful part. I think everybody enjoyed, the characters that they played. What did you do after Pollyanna? Did you just go back to being a?
Oh, well, once I was with Disney, they wouldn't let go.
Good. Right.
And they knew that I lived in New York, and I got another phone call for
Right.
the following summer. And they said they're doing again, Stars and something special. And it was The Absent-Minded Professor.
Oh,
with
wow.
Fred McMurray.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, that I co-starred in with him.
Yes.
And I never had such a good time.
Yes, I'll bet.
I mean, first of all, though, he was a big Republican. I'm a big Democrat.
Right.
So but he grew up in Wisconsin. So we would share stories
Yes.
about growing up and in the Midwest and what that was like. He also, to my very huge amazement, at the end of the day, he'd say, Nancy, I have to cook dinner tonight. You know, he was married to June Haver and they had 2 little girls.
Yeah.
And I said, you're cooking dinner after working all day? And he said, yes. He said, now I've got some lamb chops, but you know, we had those recently. I mean, that was, it was ridiculous, but he was delightful.
Yeah.
And Nancy,
that film, by the way, is one of the films that remains. It's done over, you know, it's shown over and over again.
Yeah.
And they had the remake, and wasn't it a pleasant surprise?
Remakes are never the same. They, you know,
no, but there's something special about Flubber, the remake. Can we watch? Let's take a look. Let's see why.
Please don't.
Pardon me, Mr. Selden. Are you interested in seeing a Philip Brainerd?
Who?
He's the college professor you spoke to on the 6th about a brand new car design.
Tell him I'm busy. Thank him for the interest. And send him a hat.
Well, he's here. He's right outside.
Wow, fantastic.
That was so great.
Oh, wonderful. Robin Williams. Oh, wow.
What was it like being on that set, Nancy? Did you get to talk to Robin, or?
It was fun again, and I helped Fred plan dinners.
Wow, that must have been a great movie to be on.
Oh,
I must
God.
say. It must have been. Gosh, Robin Williams. Well, he must have been amazing to work with.
Well, making movies, Hayley, in those days was so different than today, I think. I don't have the great desire that I used to see what's on film today. I really don't. I've lost my interest. And by the way, the theater has changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I mean, I did 3 plays on Broadway. The most fun I had was Mary Mary. That because it was beautifully written. Anything that's well written is fun.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you play with it. And comedy, you play with it this way, you play with it that way. You know, it's amazing. And that was one of my great pleasures. But I enjoyed the other 2 as well. But being, you know, in the theater is a whole different experience.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Totally.
I love it. I love the theater.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that communication and that contact.
Yes.
I love starting at the beginning of the play, the beginning of the story, and going right through to the end.
Yeah.
I love the camaraderie of the company, of the actors together.
But,
and,
where are the Tennessee Williams now? and the Rodgers and Hammerstein and the Cole Porters. And I mean, I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happening in the world.
Well, it's
a
a
great
very different
escapism
world.
for sure.
It is, yeah,
It's changed, truly.
Yes, it has.
Well, Nancy, your book was featured in the. I was texting your son Chris. I was like, I'm in New York City. I'm at the Museum of Broadway, and guess whose book is on display in the window and in the shop, and it was yours. Yeah.
Well, the problem with my book is that I have not been able to travel. Hayley, I'm 94. I'm going to be 95 in July. That's a couple of weeks.
It's a lie. It's a lie.
No. And I cannot get on I can get on an airplane for 8 hours or whatever, but then to go into a hotel room, to wake up in the middle of the night and not know where I am and find my way into the bathroom. I mean, I can't do it.
Yes. That happens to me now, Nancy. I walk into the cupboard on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But no, I know you need the comfort and security of your own home and your own bed.
Absolutely. I still drive, not at night anymore, but I do drive to get my hair done. I get my manicure, go to the bank, go to the pharmacy, go to the market, usually with my housekeeper though, so that she can help me. And I do that. I read the New York Times from cover to cover, which gets more and more depressing as every day goes by.
All right.
I'm in the world.
Yes.
But and I'm retiring from the world. And I think the book would have been sold many more with all the invitations I had to go everywhere and publicize it.
Right.
Well, we have a couple of people who are watching tonight, and those who will be watching a little bit later. In the show notes below, there are links to get a copy of Hayley's and Nancy's book, and I highly recommend it. I've read both of them, and both of them have different unique stories and different perspectives, and it's something I think it's a required reading, especially if somebody ever wants to be in the film industry at some point in time too. One of your colleagues from Pollyanna, James Drury, was actually on the show with me about 6 years ago, and he told me a little fun fact. So I pulled, there's some video footage from Pollyanna, but I pulled this clip from our interview where he mentions a fun fact about you, Nancy. So here we go.
Part in Pollyanna, I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a real dull experience. I went ahead and made the film, and we had appeared in the film, and we had a wonderful time making it. Everybody was very compatible and very friendly, and we made.
Ooh, it must have cut out. But he mentions that he knew a family member of yours, Nancy. I'm sorry, but for some reason the video's not working.
He went to high school with my brother.
So you had known him before even making the movie. So
I knew who he was. I really didn't know him that well, but my brother is younger than I, so we were not the same age, but it worked. It seemed to work.
I thought you guys were so adorable in the film. I loved it. And I found these shots too, and these were just adorable. I had to include them as well.
Hayley is the person in that movie that holds it together. Without Hayley, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
It was a good part. It was a good part. And I'll tell you, it was a good part for Mary Pickford as well. It's just one of those parts that it's very attractive. People love the idea of this child changing a whole community like that and bringing the best out in people. Yeah. It's a great part, and it stayed with me for the rest of my life.
I'm sure. It's a part of my life as well.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, it's
we
been
have some
great.
questions from the audience. They've been asking. So here's one. This one says, having read your book, Hayley, I thought you made the right choice in leaving Disney. Looking back, do you think you made the right decision at the time?
Yes, I do, because it was time for me to really get out into the world and, find out what I wanted to do, find out who I was, make my mistakes. Um, because much as I love working for Disney, and I was very sad to leave the studio, during the time that I was under contract, a number of things had come up, films opportunities that I would really love to have done. And of course, they were not considered to be compatible or appropriate with my Disney contract and the Disney image. So um, I realized, I sort of didn't realize until much later, but I always really wanted to be an actress, and so I wasn't hugely ambitious or anything like that, but I loved it, and when a good part came along, I recognized it and wanted to do it very much. So it was, it's quite funny actually, because I was offered Lolita, and I would have worked with Stanley Kubrick and James
Wow.
Mason and Shelley Winters, and it would have been, and Peter Sellers, and it would have been a wonderful thing to do. But Walt said, no, I don't think it's quite right. You're you're under contract, to the studio. It's interesting to think, well, I wonder what would have happened if I'd done that. You know, life things come to you, and decisions are made, and so your little boat goes off in that direction, and there's no point really in wondering what would have happened if I had done it. But it's quite an amusing thing to think about.
Well, here's one. What are your favorite musicals and or musical performances, theater performances?
Who, me?
Either one. What maybe what stage show or stage performer really struck you when you got to see them perform live?
Oh, wow. Well, I think Rita Moreno in West Side Story, and I thought she was absolutely stunning. And Julie Andrews, um, and I remember seeing. No, it wasn't Julie Andrews I saw in West Side Story. It was Mary Martin. That's right. When I was very, very young, very, very young. But have you done musicals, Nancy?
Pardon me?
Have you done musicals?
Oh, no. No.
Right.
Actually, I'm very musical. I play the piano by ear, but I also studied classics.
Right.
And my mother was extremely musical, and I love music. And that's why Alan Lerner, when he said that he had done Brigadoon, I said, would you marry me and take me to New York?
Right. But you had a very pretty voice. I remember, listening to you in Pollyanna. You had a very pretty voice. So
I've had a very interesting life. I mean, it has been extraordinary.
Mm.
When I was going to UCLA, I asked them, I called Paramount. I was under contract to Paramount, but I still was a student. And I said, I have the weekend off, or I could go to New York for a few days. Could you put me up in the Plaza Hotel in their cheapest room and their least expensive? And could you get me tickets? I had a friend who would go with me in New York City. I'd never been to New York City before.
Right.
And I said, could I have tickets starting with Sunday night? I arrived Saturday night late.
Right.
And through the week. And this was in 1949.
Right.
It's a long time ago.
Yes.
The first night I saw South Pacific, the Actors Benefit, on a Sunday night. with Mary Martin and Ethiopians and da. The next night, I saw Death of a Salesman.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
That's not a musical.
The next night, I saw Where's Charlie with the man who played the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yes.
Jack Haley.
Jack Haley.
Jack Haley, that's right. Yeah.
The lead in that musical, singing Once in Love with Amy. Always
right.
in love with Amy. I mean, and dancing as only he could. The next night, I saw Henry Fonda, and I can't remember the name of the play, but it's well known. The next night, I saw Marlon Brando in Streetcar Named Desire.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
What a lineup.
And the last night, I saw Kiss Me Kate.
Right.
Goldwater. Wow. I got to tell you, I thought on the plane coming home, why does anyone live anywhere else but New York City?
Yes.
Because, I mean, night after night after night,
yes,
theater has never actually done that.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I mean, certainly Rogers and Hammerstein, and then Al Turner with Brigadoon and Paint Your Wagon, My Fair Lady, and then he did a movie, Gigi, an original screenplay and score. And then he did Camelot, which is now being, by the way, it's on Broadway again. It did not get great reviews because the very excellent writer tried to rewrite the book, which it needed. But the score is fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And but I have no desire. There's not one thing that I can think of on Broadway today that I truly want to get on an airplane and go and see. But I certainly did over the years then.
Mm-hmm. I think you would like Some Like It Hot. It was wonderful. I got to see that.
Like It Hot was great. Yes. Oh, there were a lot more. But that's just my original experience. Can you imagine?
Wow, that's amazing. Absolutely. Yeah, well, you can't beat that. You cannot beat that.
No.
Fantastic. Marlon Brando, did you see Marlon Brando in Streetcar?
Yes.
Is that wild?
I mean, Marlon Brando was extraordinary.
Did Vivien Leigh play Blanche Dubois?
Did he what?
Did Vivien Leigh play Blanche Dubois on Broadway?
No.
All right. She was a great stage actress, but
I got to know Marlon a little bit. He was a very sad man, I think. He could.
You both have had so many interactions with many notable names. I think two individuals. I know for you, Nancy, throughout the book, John F. Kennedy is a continuing character that appears, and for Hayley, you had Walt in your life for so long. So those are two prominent characters. And I want to encourage people to get a copy of both of your books so you can hear more about their stories. There's so many more that we just can't cover today. I wish we could have more than just an hour with both of you. But I really, really appreciate both of you being here this evening. Before we end, we always do a Kodak moment. So just look right at the camera. We're going to do smiles. So even everybody who's watching, everybody give a big smile. 1, 2, 3. Kodak. Just a memory to keep with us forever. Really, I just watching Pollyanna earlier this week, and then also reading your books and seeing some of your other movies just in preparation for this was such a joy because, each character you guys have, each character you've played is given just a unique screen cinema experience. And I really was so grateful that you wrote these books because it just gives us a little insight into how you felt and what that time was like for your lives. So thank you guys so much for being on the show and writing these wonderful books. It was what a pleasure.
Excuse me, Tammy, but you know, I'm so sorry I didn't talk about my second husband, Alan Livingston, who was president
Yes.
of Capitol Records, and when we married, he signed the Beach Boys, the Beatles, and the band. I was entertaining the Beatles.
And Hayley was there for one of those events, and I forgot to mention that too.
Came to one of my parties for the Beatles, I think.
I think maybe it was your party. We're going to have to talk about this next time I'm I'm in Hollywood, Nancy.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you guys for joining us this evening. Everybody who's been watching, thank you for sending in your questions. If you've enjoyed what you watched this evening, just subscribe to my channel because I love hosting reunions like this. This is very special. And feel free to follow me on Instagram, Twitter at Tammy Tuckey, my website, tammytuckey.com. Thanks again to Nancy and Hayley for being on the show. I hope to see you guys soon, hopefully one day in person. And remember, be glad. It's just been such a wonderful evening. Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy. And thank you, Nancy. It's been such a pleasure seeing you and listening to you. And I hope we meet again soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. Take care of yourself, Nancy. Bye.
Good evening. Bye, everybody.